My fiancée mocked my salary after I covered every expense for years, so I ended the engagement publicly, and now her family desperately wants answers. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and for the past 3 years, I genuinely believe that providing for my fiancée, Rachel, was my way of showing love. Maybe it came from how I was raised. My dad always said a real man takes care of his home, even if it means breaking his back to do it. So I worked my steady, predictable 9 to 5, took every overtime shift I could, and made sure Rachel never had to worry about a single bill. Rent? I covered it. Utilities? Mine. Groceries, date nights, emergencies, even her impulsive shopping sprees she called self-investment, all on my shoulders. I remember one night, sitting at our tiny kitchen table, sorting receipts while Rachel lounged on the couch scrolling Instagram. I said softly, "Hey, do you think you can pitch in this month? Even a little?" She didn't even glance up. "Babe, you know my startup needs all my attention right now. You're the stable one. That's why we work." I told myself she was right, that it was temporary, that sacrifices like these were normal in long-term relationships. But in the back of my mind, small cracks were forming. Whenever I brought up budgets or asked about her own income, she'd give vague answers or suddenly remember something she had to do. Still, she always praised me in front of others, calling me reliable, responsible, the man who kept everything together. I soaked that in like validation, even though her tone sometimes felt rehearsed. Then the joke started. "Your little 9 to 5, she'd say with a laugh, tapping my chest. "At least one of us is dreaming big." I'd force a smile, pretending it didn't sting, pretending it wasn't disrespect wrapped in humor. I told myself she didn't mean it, that she was just stressed or overwhelmed. At the time, I was too busy planning our future, saving for a bigger apartment, imagining a family, imagining stability, to notice something darker growing beneath her compliments and teasing. Something I didn't realize would eventually consume everything I thought we had. And the worst part is, I had no idea how close that storm really was. I didn't notice it at first, but Rachel's standards started shifting in ways that made my stomach tighten. Suddenly, the restaurants we used to love were too basic. The clothes I bought her were not her style anymore. And even the vacations I saved up for became cute but not luxury. I remember driving us to dinner one night, my old sedan humming louder than usual, and Rachel sighed, staring out the window. "You know," she said, "it wouldn't hurt you to think bigger. Most men our age are already leveling up." Her words sat heavy in the air. I laughed it off, pretending it didn't feel like she was squeezing my chest. Her friends didn't make things easier. Whenever we met them, I felt like a walking financial report. "At least he tries," one of them joked once. "Not everyone can aim high." Rachel laughed along as if it were harmless, but I felt something sink inside me. Later that night, I asked her quietly, "Do you think I'm not doing enough?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't be sensitive. It's just girl talk." Around that time, I noticed she kept her phone closer, face down, locked, always angled away from me. I'd walk into the room, and she'd snap it shut like she was protecting a secret. "Who's that?" I'd ask casually. "Just business stuff," she'd answer, her tone sharper than usual. There was a distance forming, and I could feel it like a cold draft running through our home. But the worst was how she spoke about money, as if mine wasn't real money, like it was some starter version she'd outgrow soon. She began dropping hints about branded things she deserved, comparing herself to influencers, saying she needed a lifestyle that reflected her goals. And as much as I tried to ignore it, something in me whispered that the woman I loved wasn't just changing. She was outgrowing the version of me she once pretended to admire. I just didn't know how far that growing gap would stretch. The pressure didn't just increase, it started swallowing me whole. One night, Rachel sat across from me at dinner, twirling her fork like she was bored with her own life. "We should move," she said casually. "Somewhere nicer. Somewhere that matches who we're becoming." I glanced around our small but comfortable apartment, the place I worked years to afford. "Rachel, we can't take on a bigger rent right now," I said gently. She didn't even blink. "That's the problem. You think too small." Her comment stung in a way I didn't expect. "I'm just being realistic," I replied. Rachel snorted. "Realistic is just code for scared." I sat there silently, feeling like a kid being scolded rather than a partner being consulted. That night, while I washed the dishes, I kept replaying her words: scared, small, predictable. It felt like she wasn't describing my job anymore. She was describing me. Then came the comparison that nearly broke me. We were talking about future plans when she mentioned her ex, Tyler, out of nowhere. He always talked about expanding, taking risks, she said, a little too fondly. He wasn't afraid to aim higher. My hands froze. Are you saying I'm not ambitious? She shrugged, sipping her wine. I'm saying you could try harder. That one sentence felt like she punched a hole straight through my chest. My friends noticed before I did. You okay, man? My buddy Mark asked one day after I zoned out mid-conversation. You look drained. I wanted to tell him everything. How Rachel's expectations kept inflating while her contributions remained non-existent. But instead, I just forced a smile. I'm fine. Meanwhile, Rachel's spending became almost aggressive. Monthly spa memberships, unnecessary subscriptions, girls' trips, designer handbags she claimed were investments. Every swipe of her card felt like another weight I had to lift alone. And late at night, lying next to her, I felt something I had never felt before, like I wasn't her partner anymore. Like I had become her financial plan. I just didn't realize how quickly that plan was unraveling beneath me. The closer we got to the engagement, the more Rachel's expectations ballooned into something I could barely recognize. One afternoon, she dragged me to a high-end jewelry store just to look. I thought she wanted inspiration, maybe ideas for styles she liked. But the second we stepped inside, she went straight to the most expensive section, rings that cost more than my yearly savings. This one, she said, pointing to a diamond the size of a marble, is the kind of ring that reflects who I am. I swallowed hard. Rachel, that's not even remotely affordable. She tilted her head and replied, then maybe you should think about earning more. The words hit like cold water. I'm doing everything I can, I said softly. She gave a sarcastic smile. Effort doesn't pay for quality. I stood there, surrounded by gleaming glass cases, feeling like a child being told to dream bigger when all I wanted was to give her something meaningful. Eventually, I chose a beautiful, modest ring, simple, elegant, within my budget. I tried to show it to her with pride. She stared at it for 2 seconds before saying, "It's fine, I guess." The disappointment in her voice echoed louder than anything she'd ever said before. Later that night, I overheard her whispering to her friend on the phone. Yeah, he got me a tiny ring. But what did I expect? He's practical like that. Practical. The way she said it, like it was a flaw, made my chest tighten. I tried to shake it off. I kept telling myself she was stressed, overwhelmed, nervous about the engagement. But even during our proposal dinner, she seemed more focused on how the ring looked in selfies than the moment we were sharing. Still, I held on to hope. Hope that once we were officially engaged, things would calm down. That the jokes, the pressure, the comparisons, all of it, would fade. I didn't know this was only the beginning of a much darker shift. The night of our engagement dinner still feels like a bruise that hasn't healed. Both families were there. Her parents, my parents, close friends, relatives, everyone dressed up, smiling, ready to celebrate what was supposed to be the happiest chapter of our lives. The restaurant was warm, candlelit, buzzing with soft jazz, and for a moment, I allowed myself to believe things might finally feel right. But Rachel was already 2 glasses in before dinner even started, laughing a little too loudly, tossing her hair like she was performing for an audience. I brushed it off at first. Nerves, I told myself. Just nerves. Then the jokes began. So, Rachel announced loudly, tapping her glass with her fork. Everyone should give a toast to me, because I'm basically marrying down. The room fell silent. My heart stopped. My mom's smile froze, my dad blinked in confusion, and her friends burst out laughing like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. I whispered, "Rachel, what are you doing?" But she waved me off. "Relax. It's a joke." "A joke?" She kept going. "I mean, hey, at least he's stable. Not rich, but stable." My jaw tightened. I felt heat crawling up my neck as she added, "And if he wants to keep me, he better start earning like a real man." This time the laughter wasn't as loud, just awkward, uncomfortable chuckles. Her father cleared his throat. Her mother stared at her plate, pretending not to hear. I could barely breathe. I leaned in, whispering, "That's enough." She smirked. "Oh, please, don't be dramatic." Dramatic. She humiliated me in front of both families, and I was the dramatic one. I excused myself and walked to the restroom, gripping the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. For the first time in years, I looked at myself and wondered, is this the woman I'm marrying? And then, just before I walked back out into that tense dining room, I realized something had changed inside me. Something I couldn't ignore anymore. The day after the engagement dinner felt like waking up after a storm I didn't remember surviving. My phone buzzed nonstop. Family members sending polite, confused messages, my friends checking if I was okay, and Rachel acting like absolutely nothing had happened. Around noon, she finally texted, "Babe, last night was fun. Why are you being weird?" That single message made something twist inside my chest. Fun. She thought that was fun. I asked her to meet me at the apartment so we could talk. When she walked in, she looked irritated, not guilty, not embarrassed, just annoyed. "Why are you acting so cold?" she said, tossing her purse on the couch. I took a deep breath. "Rachel, you humiliated me last night. In front of everyone." She rolled her eyes so hard it was almost theatrical. "Oh my God, it was just a joke. You're so sensitive." Her tone was dismissive, practiced, like she'd said it 1,000 times before. "I'm serious," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You crossed a line." She folded her arms. "And people joke. That's life. Stop trying to make me feel guilty for having a personality." I stared at her, stunned. "A personality?" She shrugged. "Yeah. I'm not going to dim myself because you want everything serious all the time." For a moment, I couldn't even speak. I just watched her. This woman I had defended, supported, carried financially and emotionally. This woman who cared more about her pride than my dignity. Then she leaned back and said something that genuinely fractured something inside me. "Honestly, you're lucky I didn't say worse. You know your salary is nothing to brag about." The apartment suddenly felt colder, like all the warmth drained out of the walls. For the first time, I didn't defend myself. I didn't negotiate. I didn't try to fix it. I just sat there, numb, realizing that the person I was supposed to marry didn't love me. She resented me. And what terrified me most was the realization that she wasn't even done showing me who she truly was. 2 days after that fight, I was sitting at my desk at work, staring blankly at a spreadsheet, when my phone buzzed with a message from my friend Mark. "Dude, you need to see this." He sent a series of screenshots. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at, just a wall of messages in a group chat. Then I saw Rachel's name at the top. My stomach dropped. There she was, my fiancé, talking about me like I was some embarrassing charity case. "He's basically a budget boyfriend," she wrote. "Like, starter husband material until my life really takes off." Another one. "He's stable, but God, he's boring. At least he pays for everything." Each message felt like a knife. My hands started shaking so hard I had to put the phone down. But it got worse. Her friends were hyping her up. "Girl, you can do better. Use this time to build your business. Ditch him when you're comfortable." And then the message that shattered me. "Honestly, if the startup works out, I'm done settling. I won't need him anymore." I reread that line over and over until the words blurred. Needing me. Not loving me. Not choosing me. Needing, like I was a tool. A stepping stone. I felt something inside me crack in a way I didn't know a human heart could. My chest hurt. My eyes burned. I couldn't breathe. I locked myself in the office bathroom and slid down the wall, trying not to fall apart completely. I had spent years supporting her dreams, her comfort, her lifestyle, only to find out I was nothing more than a temporary convenience. In that moment, I hit my lowest point. Lower than the engagement dinner. Lower than her cruel jokes. This wasn't just disrespect. This was betrayal. Real, cold, intentional betrayal. And as I sat there on the bathroom floor, gripping my phone like a lifeline, one brutal thought echoed in my head. If this is what she says behind my back, what else am I not seeing? I didn't know it yet, but the truth was about to get even darker. For the next few days, everything felt like it was happening underwater. Slow, muffled, unreal. I'd wake up, get ready for work, go through the motions, but my mind kept replaying those screenshots like a cruel loop I couldn't escape. Every sacrifice I'd ever made suddenly looked stupid, naive, pathetic. I found myself sitting on the edge of my bed one night, staring at the bills I paid, the receipts I kept, the reminders I set for her appointments, her subscriptions, her expenses. It felt like I was looking at evidence. Evidence of how easily someone can confuse love with servitude. I remember whispering to myself, how did I let it get this far? The silence that followed felt heavier than anything Rachel ever threw at me. My thoughts kept spiraling. Every time she ignored my questions, every time she dismissed my feelings, every time she called my job cute. Little moments I brushed off suddenly made perfect sense. Still, a part of me needed answers. I wanted, no, I deserved, to hear her admit what she really thought. So I called her. Can we talk? I asked. Her voice was flat. About what now? I swallowed my anger. About us. She sighed dramatically. Ugh, you're still on that. When she came over the next day, she acted irritated again, like I was inconveniencing her. I showed her the screenshots. Her face didn't fall. She didn't panic. She just stared for a moment, then said, "You weren't supposed to see those." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "That's not true." Just that. I felt my stomach twist. So you meant all of it? She shrugged. I was venting. Everyone vents. Venting. Venting that I was a placeholder. Venting that I was boring, small, temporary. Venting that the minute she succeeded, she'd leave me behind. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who felt nothing for me except entitlement. And right then, for the first time since I met her, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt angry. Angry enough to realize this wasn't going to end with a quiet conversation. This needed something bigger. Something she wouldn't forget. Once the anger set in, real anger, not the confused hurt I'd been swallowing for months, I started noticing details I had ignored before. Rachel's tone, her entitlement, her constant assumption that I'd always be there funding her life. It became painfully clear. If I didn't take control of this situation, she would spin the narrative until I looked like the villain who overreacted. And that thought alone lit something inside me. I wasn't going to let her walk away thinking she had control over my story. Around that time, Rachel started pushing for a second engagement gathering, a bigger one, with extended relatives, family friends, co-workers, and her network. She framed it as celebration, but I knew what it really was, a stage. A stage she planned to stand on while showing off a life I paid for. "It'll be classy," she said with a smug smile. "Everyone will see how strong we are as a couple. Just don't get all emotional like last time." Emotional. That word struck a nerve. But instead of arguing, I said, "Okay, let's do it." Her eyes lit up. She thought she had me wrapped around her finger again. What she didn't know was that I spent the next week quietly preparing. I wasn't planning some dramatic expose or a screaming match. No, that wasn't my style. I gathered my financial records, receipts, text messages, screenshots, everything that showed the truth. Not to humiliate her, but to protect myself from the spin she was already crafting. I even looped in Mark and two close friends, explaining calmly what Rachel had been doing for years. They didn't just support me, they were furious. Meanwhile, Rachel strutted around talking about caterers, flower arrangements, and public image, completely unaware of the shift happening inside me. She even joked, "This time, try not to embarrass me." I stared at her, wondering how someone could be so arrogantly oblivious. As we got closer to the event, I could feel a strange calm settling in my chest. Not fear, not sadness, just clarity. And clarity can be a very powerful thing, especially when the person standing across from you thinks they still have the upper hand. The evening of the second engagement gathering felt eerily calm. Too calm, almost. The venue Rachel picked was a polished banquet hall with dim golden lights, glass chandeliers, and a soft piano playing in the background. People arrived dressed to impress, greeting us with warm smiles and congratulations. Rachel looked stunning, I won't deny that. Hair perfect, dress shimmering, confidence radiating off her like stage lights. But the confidence wasn't about us. It was about the performance she was ready to give. From the moment we walked in, she acted like the star of a show. "Everyone, look at the ring," she announced loudly, stretching her hand out like she was a celebrity on a red carpet. "It's small, but sentimental." Her friend snickered. My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent. I wasn't here to fight. I was here to end something. Throughout the evening, she kept dropping little jabs, soft enough to pass as jokes, sharp enough to draw blood. "You know how he is," she'd say with a laugh. "Practical, predictable, stable." Each word chipped at the last pieces of respect I held for her. I saw my mother frown, my father's fists clench, but I calmly assured them with a look. "I've got this." Then came the moment everything crystallized. Rachel raised her glass, smiling too widely, and said, "Let's toast to my fiancé. He may not earn much, but he tries." Laughter rippled through the room. That was it. I stepped forward slowly, gently taking the microphone from her hand. "Thank you," I said with a steady voice, "but I think it's my turn to speak." Rachel's smile faltered, confusion flickering in her eyes. I looked around the room, at both families, her friends, my friends, everyone who came to celebrate something real. "I won't be continuing this engagement," I said simply. A gasp swept through the hall. Rachel went pale. Her mother covered her mouth. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed calm. "I won't marry someone who humiliates me publicly and privately. I deserve respect, and I'm done pretending otherwise." I placed the ring on the table beside us, and as I turned to walk out, leaving Rachel frozen in stunned silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Freedom. But the chaos wasn't even close to over. The moment I stepped out of that hall, it felt like the air finally reached my lungs after months of suffocating. But the silence didn't last long. My phone erupted, vibrating nonstop as if it were shaking with Rachel's rage. First came the texts. "What the hell was that?" Then, "Come back right now." Then, "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." It flipped, fast. Anger to desperation, desperation to pleading. "Please just talk to me. Please don't do this." I didn't respond. By the time I reached the parking lot, her mother was calling. I hesitated, then answered. "Please," she said softly, voice trembling. "Can you explain what happened?" For once, she didn't sound judgmental or cold. She sounded terrified. I took a breath and said, "Check your messages. I'm sending you something." Then I forwarded her the screenshots. Every insult, every conversation where Rachel mocked me, every line that turned my love into a punchline. It didn't take long. Her mother called back, voice shaking. I had no idea she was saying those things. "I'm so sorry." In the background, I could hear Rachel yelling, "Give me the phone," before someone shut a door. Her father called next, trying to piece together the chaos, speaking slowly like he was processing a foreign language. I told him the truth. All of it. He didn't defend her. Not once. Meanwhile, Rachel's group chat exploded. Her friends posted cryptic Instagram stories, black backgrounds with white text like, "Some people love drama, and men can't handle real women." That kind of petty nonsense. It didn't affect me. They were the same people who encouraged her cruelty. Their opinions meant nothing. But the part that hit me the hardest was the message from my own mother. "I'm proud of you. You chose yourself." I hadn't realized how desperately I needed someone, anyone, to say those words. By the end of the night, I was lying in my dark apartment, phone still buzzing every few minutes, but my mind strangely calm. Because even though everything had exploded, even though Rachel was spiraling, even though her family was scrambling for answers, I knew this wasn't the end of it. People like Rachel don't let go without trying to control the narrative. And I could feel the storm building again, right outside my door. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight creeping through the blinds. Warm, quiet, peaceful. For a second, I forgot everything that had happened. Then I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls. Rachel, her mother, her father, even one of her friends trying to explain things. I didn't answer any of them. After months of being drained, humiliated, and used, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Around noon, Rachel showed up at my apartment building. She didn't knock. She just called nonstop until I finally stepped outside. Her makeup was smeared. Her voice cracked. "Please," she whispered, "please talk to me." I stood there quietly. For once, she didn't look superior or confident or untouchable. She looked small. "I screwed up," she cried. I didn't mean any of it. I was stressed. The business, my friends, they got in my head. She reached for my arm. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Please, don't leave me." A few months ago, I might have folded. I might have apologized for her behavior, comforted her tears, convinced myself she didn't mean the things she said. But I wasn't that man anymore. "I'm not coming back," I said softly. "What you said, what you did, that wasn't a mistake. That was who you are." She shook her head violently, sobbing harder. No, I can change." I stepped back. "I really hope you do. But I'm done being someone's backup plan." Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy, but not enough to forget the months of disrespect. Not enough to erase the pain. Not enough to betray myself again. I wished her well, turned around, and walked back into my building without looking back. She stayed there for a few minutes, crying softly, before finally leaving. And when the door closed behind me, A strange feeling washed over me. Relief, clarity, and something even deeper. I finally felt like myself again, and no more walking on eggshells, and no more begging for respect, and no more shrinking to make someone else feel big. I didn't just walk away from an engagement, that I walked back into my own life. And this time, I wasn't giving it away to anyone who didn't truly value it.